Hello ladies and gentles, balls and girls. Okay, that's a way of putting it. Didn't mean to, but so I'm uploading a video as we speak. It's kind of a long one, and oh my god, going through it and editing it is just the absolute tax on an ADHD brain. However, something's been bugging me just on its own about Eve, and for those of you who've seen me for a while, they know that I will rant of aggressive predatory behaviour in Eve. I really dislike the fact that things use the fear of missing out. I dislike exploitative tactics whenever I see them, and I'll call them out whenever I see them, even if it's in a game that I absolutely love and I am a fan of. But something's been pissing me off, and it's because this little gold Omega sign has popped up. Now my account's in Omega, although I am currently flying a beginning thing. But if you look at this, I'm not sure how well it'll appear on the screen, but it says, learn about the benefits of an Omega subscription here and subscribe here. Now, I'm broke as shit, so I can't run a subscription at the moment. So, being of that sort of part of the community, i.e. somebody who's played for a long term, but doesn't have the money to throw infinite amounts of cash, that's kind of an interesting one. I can't subscribe because I don't know the state of my money from one month to the next. However, if we click on it, as you can see here, it's got Omega benefits. Now bear in mind it said, learn about the benefits of an Omega subscription, or an Omega subscription has. So let's have a look at these. The Elite Advantage. Okay, so marketing wank for you have Omega. Double the training speed. No, the training speed for EVE Online has always been the same since it started. So if you're in alpha, you have half the training speed because you're playing a demo. You don't have double the training speed for being Omega. Now that's semantics, but I think it's pretty sort of impressive, like sort of stretching the definition. Access to all skills, that's true. Multi-account login, that's true. Access to all ships, that's not true. You only have access to the ships that you've trained. So you can only fly the ships that you have trained. You don't have access to Titans if you're a solo player with not much money. So that's misrepresenting it. But let's have a look at it all. So access to all skills, access to all ships, multi-account login, double your DLI, so that's your daily stuff. Double training speed, nope. Planetary industry, yes. Although planetary industry is something that is really annoying me, that I keep seeing videos about people misrepresenting it. Not even 2 weeks ago somebody put out a video on making billions from a particular thing, but they hadn't talked about any of the input prices for what they were making. And this was somebody that is sort of sponsored by CCP, where they're going out there and saying you can make billions. Actually, they'd spent 800 million in advance, so you could only make about 300 million when they're claiming billions. And I'm sat there going, that's a key thing. That's misrepresentative. That's the entire reason why people take a look at the video, think, oh, I could do that, join the game, realise it's nonsense, and then blame the game for what somebody in the community has said. And especially when it's somebody who might appear on CCP streams, that's particularly bad, and it's a bad thing to put out there. And if you're somebody that is at CCP, I would be having a polite word with those people for those kind of videos, because that doesn't gain you any followers. It ensures that followers that might come in will have a higher expectation than the game can deliver. So reduced taxes. I didn't actually know that was a thing. I've had a look at it, but yeah. 2 times ACP skill points. Now this is where I'm sort of... Omega doubles your skill point reward in the air career program. Something that most people don't use after like the first month or so. So that seems weird. Unlimited training. Well, that's the same as access to all skills. So you've sort of put the two things there together. Accept all missions. I didn't realise there was a limit on what missions you could do. Oh, you can only do level 3 if you're on alpha. It makes sense, but that's a weird hill to die on. I could see it, but yeah, still weird. Well, more contracts. Okay, if you're a trader, that's one thing, but it's not really an advertising point. Boosted rewards. Let's have a look again. Free skill points to rare items. Omega gives you. So, it's not something that makes any day-to-day difference. This is like, say for instance, you were advertising a car, and you were advertising that the wing mirrors are slightly larger. That's the equivalent to that. It's not really going to make any difference to the vast majority of people. The elite advantage, you've already covered that. How did they actually title this? Give yourself the elite advantage of an Omega subscription with a whole suite of benefits, including access to all ships. So they're literally saying the same thing twice. I've just closed that again, because the stupidity has overwhelmed my senses. This is the rest of it. So you're just taking all of it together and put it... This kind of stuff is easy to see through. And people see through it now, and it's more and more common. I've said about this in previous videos, but people are being educated about this in school. My kids are in daycare at the moment. One of them's just about to start normal school, and they are getting educated about this stuff because it's so prevalent in like the news, where you've got disguised marketing that looks like news stories and stuff like this. It's so significant that Scottish education system, Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian education systems are actually putting this kind of sort of BS detectors as part of the curriculum. So if you're putting this stuff out there, and this is the advertising you're showing people, what's that going to do for the game? If people see that, see sort of false marketing or marketing wank around about it, that's a worry. Now, vote for the CSM. Nah, your vote basically doesn't count. The people that go into it are the people with alliances behind them who vote for the head of the alliance, or YouTubers who get their sort of fans to vote for them for the CSM. And then the CSM doesn't get listened to, or does get actively ignored for some things, because you're a committee that kind of helps. You're essentially sort of showing that people are doing something, but not really implementing what people have been asking for, unless it's the massive alliances, and that is what already aligns with the ideas for the developers. But again, the vast majority of people aren't part of these big alliances. The vast majority of voters are. So it looks good on paper, it's not really worth anything. Full Skinner access, in other words, full ability to give us more money. That's a dangerous thing to put in there. 10 times more Eve marks. The currency in Eve that does almost nothing. I mean, there's no use for that. That's... Why are you putting this stuff out there? Be better than this. That's all I want. It's a subtle little thing. Be better. I mean, there are legitimate things for this, but stop advertising Omega as the higher tier. It's not. It's what the game was meant to be. Make sure that people know that Alpha is the demo. That's the simple way of doing it. I would also argue, and this is something that I've sort of been going over for a while, but I would also argue that the price should be coming down. Now, let me show this for a second, because if we go back in here, and have a look at the offers, and then switch it to, well, let's keep it in euros for the moment. So 1 month costs you 20 euros. If you buy 3 months, you get it at 16, 6 months at 14, 12 months at 12 euros, 2 years at 11 euros per month. Now that shows that 11 is a sustainable amount. 11 euros per month is a sustainable amount. My argument is make that the cost. Now, the reason I say that is that this pattern, yes, it is investing in the development long term. You're putting a bigger chunk of money in longer term. But it also, to a lot of people, looks very much like a gym membership, where you're saying, well, it's cheaper over time, but you're locked into paying us. And in this case, it isn't locked into paying us, you're just handing over the money in advance. So if you want to put in for 2 years, you're putting in €264. So it's still under the €400 it would normally cost you. But you're only giving that advantage to a particular group of people, i.e. affluent players that can afford this. So when you look at it from another point of view, which is how a lot of people with less money would look at it, is you're not giving a deal to people who are giving you more money. You're punishing people who can't afford to put that amount of money in at one go. So you can give us €11 per month if you've got that €264 to spend. Or if you're a poor, sort of poverty-ridden player, you're gonna have to pay month by month and pay us at the €20 amount. That's the other perspective of it. And this is all about perspective. I completely understand why a group of game developers working in Iceland, which has a fairly high median wage, don't see it in the way that I see it. It's because they haven't been poor and they haven't grown up in a country with true poverty. Iceland is a fantastic country. It's a utopia for a lot of things. They have very low unemployment. They have a lot of opportunities. And if you're a game developer working for CCP, you're sorted. But at the same time, the other side of that is, say, for instance, if you've grown up in a poorer country. Scotland is actually poorer than the rest of Britain. There's lots of jokes about it, but essentially, if you take 10 years off of Britain's success, that's where the average person in Scotland sort of sits, because there is that sort of gap in Britain. And people don't understand about it. There's a whole load of politics involved in it. But you have a less affluent population. If you're in America, America has a massive population divide. When it comes to rich versus poor, the divide is phenomenal. So if you're somebody that can't afford to put €260 down on a video game, then you're being punished for it. And that's what it feels like. But my point is, one of the biggest comments that I see, and this is on Reddit, this is in my chat, this is in other people's chat, when it comes to non-EVE players, is it's so expensive. Why make it like that? Or people playing alpha, they say, they charge so much, I will never pay for this. All you have to say is, well, we listen to the players. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it universal. We're going to make it €11, or better yet, €9 and something, so that you get that cognitive divide under the €10 mark. But then people that subscribe for longer pay the same price, but they get more benefits. You could put stuff in the game. You could put stuff for Skinner, tickets for Skinner maybe. You could put things in where you could get cheap, better training, you could get cheaper market rates, things like that. There are all different things that you could use as a bonus. Some of them already in-game. So if you subscribe for longer, there is a benefit in-game to it, as opposed to a financial benefit where you don't pay as much as the plebeian classes. So I think that's a good idea. I think that's a better idea because it is one of the main comments. And in the old days when EVE Online was pure subscription, before they had Plex, before there was the alpha accounts, there was a thing about it where part of the thought process, and this was manifested by some developers, is that the fact that you have to pay for it actually keeps out a certain sort of class of toxic player. But now we're down the line, alpha exists, Jesus, the EVE forums, if you make a suggestion, you will see that class of toxic player that they were talking about. That exists within the community already, so it's not gatekeeping anymore. It's not sort of keeping it for better people, which is already a worrying sort of trend. But now it's something that should be looked at and adjusted. I was looking, funnily enough, I was looking at the financials in Finland the other day and noticed that the median wage in Finland's actually dropped by €6,000 in the past 2 years. So wages are going down instead of up. And then obviously we have this costs and prices and everything else is going up. But also CCP is navigating a thing where, although they're in their own bubble, the gaming industry is sort of coming to reckon with the proper predatory behaviour, where games are taking thousands of pounds from people and doing stupid advertisement and manipulative deals and shutting down after a while and nobody gets their money back and stuff like that. All of that is going on right next to where CCP lives in the gaming community. It would be a good idea to get ahead of that, in my opinion, because that's something that's going to start tarring everybody. And games that are live service, which unfortunately, I hate the term live service game, but EVE Online, WoW, these are live service games. They're not something that we can ever own because we can't run that sort of server cluster in our bedroom. And I don't disagree with live service games existing. I do disagree with predatory monetization because I think you can put the same stuff out there with goodwill and get more into it. Personally, if you were to hand me a couple of years worth, like if I could pay my Plex and pay it for longer and get an advantage where I would get some skinner tokens so I could put some nice skins onto some of my ships. I quite like this black and white motif I've got on some of them. I would be doing that constantly. I would be trying to put in for more months at a time so that I can pick up those little extra things so that I can customize all my gear, because I quite like that in games. The customization aspect, I've talked about this before with Rust. The fact that to upkeep a game after people have initially bought it, using skins as a method of generating revenue so that the game company can continue working on the game even though it would require more money, I think that's a good thing, because it allows people to get something for what they are doing with it, get something for the donation that they are giving in, and still supporting that games company, as opposed to buying 2 or 3 of the same game. However, a lot of us, especially with EVE, buy 2 or 3 of the same game. People run multiple accounts. So I think it's a way of giving back to the community. And I know it's one of those things. By the way, as I said a couple of videos ago, I have applied to CCP to see if they would give us like the monthly account for free as a little help for doing the YouTube, because basically I'm broke as shit, and I am aware that making a video like this is kind of pummeling my chances into the floor, but I still think it needs said. I still think it needs listened to. It is an opinion that from my comments alone shows you that it's not uncommon. If you go onto Reddit, you can see it's not uncommon. When you bring EVE up outside of the EVE bubble to other gamers, you can see that attitude. And that attitude isn't another gamer's opinion. That is a gamer's opinion who will talk to other gamers, who might talk to younger gamers. And opinions like that spread. That's how racism spreads. You can have people that have a entirely disliked or a sort of hatred inside what they perceive of another race without ever having interacted with them. So that's something that needs to be caught. And if you were to just, for instance, take that €20 and slash it to just under 10, that would make gaming news. That would be a fantastic thing. It would be a short hit to the company's financials, but I don't think it would be anything that's weathered. And especially with the amount of publicity that you would garner off of it, I think that's a good thing. So that's my opinion. Obviously, when it comes to the financials of CCP, I don't know anything aside from what they publish and or what is published on the government website for Iceland. But I think it's worth it. I think somebody in the office or at the accounts should be having a look at that at the very least, because it's a hell of a way to get people in. It's a hell of a way to show goodwill with what's going on. But that's my 2 cents. My €20 almost. But yeah, it's something that you see. If you see constant sales from the same company, you're not going to have a good opinion of what it costs. There's a running joke in Britain about the DFS sale. Now, DFS is a furniture store, and it has essentially had a sale on for 90% of its existence. And when it doesn't have a sale on, nobody buys anything from it. It is just a joke. And this is kind of EVE. This is kind of CCP, because that sale comes around every couple of months. People talk about waiting for the next sale. This is a commonly spoken about thing within the YouTube community, within the normal community, within Eve, where they are saying, oh, just wait for it and then buy a couple of months. Because you can buy 3 months and you will be within range of the next sale. Why not sack that off entirely? Instead of having to do that, why not generate some more benefits and say, we're not going to run sales, but we are going to half the prices so that everybody's paying the same thing. We need money to survive. We are a game that runs a massive server. We are in constant development. We're always trying to make it better for you. We may fall as we do that, but we pick ourselves up and we try again. And we want to put goodwill out there. I can understand that's not an opinion that a lot of people share within the development community. But read through the comments. That is an opinion that's out there. Not all gamers have the same amount of money as the developers that are making their games. So, that's my idea. Thanks for listening. I will get back to try and upload this thing and isolate whether I've actually sworn in a video and have to change how I affect it on YouTube. I just don't understand this stuff. But yes, thanks for everything. Thanks for all the support. If you are if you're somebody who is subscribed, if you are thinking about subscribing, if you have liked, disliked, commented, as always, I love the comments. Please put your opinions down below when talking about this stuff, because it puts it in front of other people and it might kickstart a conversation at higher levels. But yes, thanks for your time. Have a good one. Bye.